The man who seeks the truth of a woman's past is walking a razor's edge. He feels this knowledge is vital, the very oxygen his trust needs to breathe, to build a future, to simply decipher the soul beside him. Yet, his instincts scream that one false move, one blunt question, will shatter everything. And his instincts are never wrong. The question, "How many men have you slept with?" is more than a clumsy inquiry. It is an act of total capitulation. The instant it escapes your lips, you are no longer a mystery doer, no longer a force of nature or an object of desire. You devolve into an insecure interrogator, hunting not for truth, but for validation of your deepest fears. You surrender all your power, and the answer you receive will be either a carefully crafted social fiction or a weapon she will one day turn against you. Today, we will not practice asking questions. We will practice forging a reality where the truth surfaces on its own, without the crude tools of pressure and interrogation. We will master a 5-step protocol of psychological inquiry, a method employed not by jealous partners, but by elite intelligence handlers and master psychoanalysts. This is the art of reading the invisible ink between the lines, of decoding unconscious signals, and of extracting intelligence without ever making a direct request. We will draw on the wisdom of Freud, who taught that every verbal slip is a confession, and of Jung, who revealed that every woman possesses a shadow, a hidden self that you must learn to address in its native tongue. The prize of this covert operation is not a demeaning number, but something infinitely more precious, a complete schematic of her true essence. But before I hand you the first key to this forbidden knowledge, I ask for a small tribute. Like this video to signal that you crave depth, not shallow answers. And if this is your first time here and you are unafraid of what lies in the dark, subscribe, because the journey only gets steeper from here. And a quick poll to gauge the room. Comment below, do you believe a direct question about a woman's past is a sign of a man's weakness? A+ sign for yes, a minus for no. I am fascinated to see how many of you share this conviction. Section 1, The Sinner's Confession Technique. The first move in our investigation is the most nuanced. Its purpose is not intelligence gathering, but the creation of a field of permission. This is a sanctuary of psychological safety where speaking the truth feels not only natural, but liberating. The great psychoanalyst Carl Jung defined the persona, the social mask we wear to satisfy the world's expectations. Your woman's persona is likely impeccable. She is the good girl, the respectable woman, the one who is different from the rest. As long as that mask is in place, the truth will remain veiled. For her to remove it, you must first dare to loosen your own. The philosophy here is simple: strategic vulnerability is the ultimate expression of power. You do not inquire about her, you disclose something about yourself. But this is no pathetic sob story, nor is it a braggart's account of past glories. It is a meticulously engineered narrative of a youthful sin, delivered with a garnish of self-aware humor and faint nostalgia. You do not speak of quantity, you speak of emotional texture, of a single, specific error in judgment or a moment of madness that, with the wisdom of age, now seems both foolish and strangely precious. This reframes the past not as a file of incriminating evidence, but as a library of human experience. Now, for the step-by-step protocol. Your choice of story is paramount. It must satisfy 3 criteria. First, it must be tied to potent emotions, passion, recklessness, perhaps a minor transgression, but never cruelty or betrayal. Second, in this story, you are not the flawless hero, but a charismatic rogue who blundered, yet emerged wiser. Third, the narrative must conclude on a note of gentle self-mockery, as if to say, yes, I was that man, young, foolish, but it makes for a hell of a memory. The delivery is as critical as the content. This must occur in a moment of emotional, not physical, intimacy. Perhaps late at night, over a glass of wine, when conversation flows effortlessly. You pause, your gaze drifts as if lost in a memory that ambushed you, and you deploy a trigger phrase. For instance, "It's strange, I just had a flash of my younger self. I'm still slightly embarrassed by it, and yet." Then, you tell your story. Keep it brief, 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, stripped of unnecessary detail, but focused on the raw feeling of that moment and how you view it now. Once your story concludes, The most critical phase begins, calibrating her response. You need silence and hawk-like observation. Her reaction will fall into one of three categories, each a dense concentration of intelligence. The first, the lockdown. Her body tenses, she deflects, changes the subject, or offers a hollow platitude like "we all have a past." Her posture constricts. This is a red flag. It signals that the topic of the past is a minefield for her, heavily tabooed, and she perceives you as a potential judge. The field of permission has failed to establish her defenses are impenetrable. The second option, the neutral observer. She listens with polite curiosity, she nods, she may smile, but she offers no reciprocal move. She might say something like, "Well, youth is for making mistakes." This is not a failure, but it is not victory either. It means the signal was received, but the trust level is not yet high enough for a return transmission. She is holding you at arm's length, still scanning, assessing if your confession is, in fact, a trap. And finally, the third, most coveted response, the counter-confession. After your story, a pause hangs in the air, and then, perhaps in a hushed tone, she says something like, "If you think that's something, let me tell you about this one time." And she shares a sin of her own. The act of reciprocal disclosure is the jackpot. It means the persona has been set aside. She felt safe, she recognized you not as a judge but as a fellow sinner, and she has subconsciously accepted the terms of engagement. From this point, the nature of your intelligence gathering is irrevocably elevated. But be warned, critical errors can sabotage this entire first stage. The gravest is turning your confession into a boast. If your story carries the scent of sexual victory, you will trigger her defenses instantly. She will see not a master psychologist, but another man measuring his history, and she will either retreat into silence or begin to compete, fabricating a past to avoid losing. The second error is self-pity. If your story paints you as a victim, cheated on, abandoned, you annihilate your status in her eyes. Women are not drawn to victims. Your story must be a tale of power, even power expressed through a flaw. Section 2, the provocative compliment technique. If step 1 was the creation of a sanctuary, step 2 is a deliberate incursion into her shadowlands. We turn again to Carl Jung and his concept of the shadow. The shadow is the part of our psyche we disown, hiding it not only from the world but from ourselves. It holds our unacceptable desires, our primal instincts, our inner wildness and capacity for danger. In a good girl, the shadow is especially potent because it is so fiercely suppressed. The provocative compliment is not praise for her beauty or her mind. It is a tribute to her shadow. It is a way of declaring, "I see beyond the polished mask you show the world, to the magnificent chaos within, and I am not intimidated by it." The philosophy of this technique is the legitimization of her hidden force. Society conditions a woman to be agreeable, gentle, and safe. Yet, in her core, every woman is aware of her own power to both create and destroy, her innate ability to unravel men. When you, as a man, do not condemn this dangerous part of her but instead admire it, a psychological alchemy occurs. Her subconscious registers this as the ultimate form of acceptance. You become the one man with whom she can shed not only the persona, but the chains of her own internal censor. This forges an electrifying bond and unlocks a level of candor she never knew she possessed. Let us proceed to the protocol. Context and execution are everything. This is not a compliment to be tossed out lightly. It demands a charged silence, an intimate space. You must look at her not merely with desire, but with a deep, analytical gaze, as if you were deciphering an ancient script. Your voice should drop, becoming a conspiratorial whisper. Your eye contact, direct and unblinking. You must not smile. Your expression should be one of serious, almost hypnotic fascination. And in that moment, you deploy a key phrase. For example, "You know, there is something in you that is genuinely dangerous. I get the sense you've shattered men's hearts completely by accident." Or, a more poetic alternative, "You have the eyes of a woman who knows a forbidden truth about life, something that is never discussed in polite company." The power is not in the specific words, but in their vector. You are complimenting her essence, her potential, not her past actions. You are not labeling her promiscuous, you are celebrating the raw power that makes her captivating. This is the razor's edge that separates the master from the amateur. You are not her judge, you are an admirer of a rare and untamed beauty. Now, we calibrate her reaction. Her response is your second layer of intel. The first and most frequent reaction, the flirtatious deflection. She might exclaim, "What a thing to say," or "Don't be ridiculous," but her words are irrelevant. Watch her body language. If a slight, proud smirk dances on her lips, if she glances away for a heartbeat before her eyes dart back to gauge your reaction, you have absolute confirmation. Her words deny it, but her body is screaming, "Yes." At last, someone who truly sees. The second option, the sovereign silence. She says nothing at all, but you witness a shift in her presence. She may straighten her spine, her chin may lift a fraction of an inch. A flicker of that dangerous light you just named ignites in her eyes. This is the response of a woman of high self-worth who knows her own power. She feels no need to defend or flirt. For her, your observation isn't a revelation, it's a fact. Her silence is a tribute to your perception. The third, and rarer, option, the analytical inquiry. Her serious expression unwavering, she might ask, "What makes you say that?" Or "What did I do to give you that impression?" This is not a defense, nor a denial. It is an invitation. You've intrigued her. You have seen something others were blind to, and she wants to understand your method. This signals you are with a woman of high intellect, who values a sharp mind as much as strength. This is your opening to deepen the connection, by articulating your observation through her gestures, her gaze, her entire way of being. The psychological master key to this technique is the creation of a unique, erotic tension. You are making her inner power, her accumulated experience, the object of attraction, not her physical appearance. This resonates with her on a level that no conventional compliment can reach. She begins to see you as a man who can withstand the full force of her true, unvarnished self. And that is the bedrock of profound trust and, ultimately, fearless honesty. She may not detail her past in that moment, but a seed has been planted. The seed of a thought, that you are the man she could tell everything to. Section 3, the Novelty Test Technique. We now pivot from words to deeds, from psychology to physiology. The third stage of our investigation unfolds in the most honest place on earth, the bed. Here, in the sanctum of intimacy, words become meaningless, and the language of the body takes over. This language cannot lie. Freud saw the body as a stage where the dramas of our unconscious are performed. The novelty test operates on a stark principle: experience carves pathways of automatic response. A body that has traced a certain map 100 times will move with unconscious grace. A body discovering new territory will betray itself with hesitation, surprise, or a moment of awkwardness. The philosophy here is the analysis of muscle memory. When you learn to drive, every action is initially a conscious struggle. With repetition, it becomes instinct. The same is true of a woman's intimate life. The larger her library of carnal experience, the more professional, automated responses she will have to a range of stimuli. Our task is to introduce a stimulus that is likely absent from the standard program and to scan her immediate, primal reaction. We are looking for that microsecond response from her nervous system, the one that happens long before her conscious mind can censor or control it. So, the protocol of action. Let this be clear, novelty does not mean extreme. This is not about introducing something bizarre or off-putting. It is about a subtle, deliberate disruption of the expected script. Here are examples of safe stimuli. The first, a sharp, but brief, rhythmic shift. At the peak of a steady, established rhythm, you suddenly freeze for several seconds, creating a vacuum of anticipation. Then, just as suddenly, you resume, but at a completely different tempo, slower, deeper, more deliberate. You are testing her adaptive reflexes. The second stimulus, the unconventional caress. In the midst of passion, you shift your attention to an atypical but highly sensitive zone. This could be a slow, almost weightless trace along the arch of her foot, a light touch to the hollows behind her knees, or kisses placed deliberately along her collarbones. These are territories often ignored in the standard script but are loaded with erotic potential. You are testing how her body's map responds to uncharted territory. The third stimulus, Verbal punctuation. At a moment of peak intensity, you whisper something in her ear that transcends conventional endearments. This should not be crude. It should be a hyper-specific, frank observation of what you are seeing or feeling in her body in that exact second. For example, "I can feel the exact rhythm of your pulse right here, beneath my hand." You are not judging, you are merely reporting a fact, but with such intense focus that the fact becomes erotically charged. You are verbalizing a sensation she is experiencing unconsciously, which creates a powerful sense of being penetrated not just physically, but mentally. And now, the crucial part, deciphering her body's reply. There are two polar opposite scenarios: the amateur's signature and the professional's response. The amateur's signature is a microscopic, yet undeniable, lag in her body's reaction. When you alter the rhythm, her body has a split second of system freeze. It is momentarily confused, waiting for your next cue. When you touch an unconventional zone, the muscles there might briefly tense in surprise before they melt into pleasure. Her breath might catch for a moment, not from arousal, but from slight disorientation. These are the telltale signs of a body that has no pre-programmed, automatic response for this stimulus. For her, this is new ground. The professional's response, in stark contrast, is defined by absolute fluidity and seamless adaptation. When you pause, her body doesn't lock up in confusion. It instinctively uses the void to build more tension. She might deepen the arch of her back, adjust her hips, or emit a low moan, actively owning the space you've created. When you touch a new zone, her body's reaction is instantaneous and correct. It yields, opens, perhaps even moves in a way that amplifies your touch. Her body doesn't ask "what is this?" It communicates "yes, I know what to do with this." This is the language of a body with a vast internal library, one that can instantly recall the appropriate response to any input. Understand that this technique demands your utmost calibration and self-mastery. There are several critical anti-mistakes you must avoid. First, never let intimacy become an interrogation. Your focus must feel organic, your observations peripheral. If she senses she is being studied like a specimen, the magic will evaporate, leaving only a defensive shell. Second, moderation. Your unconventional move must be a subtle grace note, not a jarring change of key. The aim is to surprise, not to shock or frighten. Third, do not base your conclusion on a single data point. Conduct these scans over time, in different moods, using varied stimuli. The truth is found in the pattern, not the isolated incident. This is the level of depth you will find in all my work. If this is the methodology you have been seeking, then now is the time to subscribe. Section 4. The Forbidden Test Technique. This stage is the logical successor to the last, but it transports us from the realm of physiology into the pure psychology of desire. While the novelty test audited her body's memory, the forbidden test scans her imagination, her internal map of desire. It is the safest, and yet most revealing, method for gauging the true extent of her boundaries in the world of fantasy, and by extension, in the world of actual experience. For as Freud taught, our fantasies are the royal road to our unconscious, to our repressed appetites and hidden histories. The philosophy of this method rests on creating a hypothetical, non-threatening space. You are not proposing an action to be taken here and now. You are inviting her to dissect a fantasy as an abstract thought experiment. This absolves her of all responsibility. She can speculate about the most deviant idea while maintaining a formal distance from it. However, her nonverbal tells, the light in her eyes, a shift in her vocal timbre, the subtle change in her breathing, will betray her true relationship to the subject. You are observing not what she says, but how her very being reacts to the imagery you conjure in her mind. The protocol here demands a degree of theatrical skill. You must introduce the idea in a way that detaches it from your own personal desires. The third-party technique is ideal. For instance, during a moment of relaxed intimacy, as you lie together talking about nothing in particular, you might muse aloud, "It's strange, I was reading an article today. It described a rather unconventional fantasy. It made me wonder what the female perspective on something like that even is." You manufacture intrigue and frame yourself as a detached researcher, not an eager participant. This grants her the psychological liberty to give an honest response. An even more subtle variation is the I dream technique. A dream is a realm for which we are not held accountable. You could say, I had the most insane dream last night, that you and I were, and here you describe a risque, perhaps even slightly perverse, scenario. The key is to frame it as a crazy dream. This preemptively dismisses the seriousness of the topic, turning it into a curious anomaly. But her reaction to this anomaly will be entirely authentic. Now to the critical task, calibrating her nonverbal signals. Ignore her yes or no. Watch her eyes. Listen to her breathing. The first response type, genuine shock and aversion. If your suggestion is met with widened eyes, a blush, a quick, awkward laugh, or an abrupt change of topic, it indicates that this territory is truly forbidden for her. Her internal map does not contain these routes. It is highly probable that her experience is confined to conventional, widely accepted scripts. The second type, the intrigued gaze behind a formal veto. This is the most complex and revealing response. Verbally, she might say, "Oh, no, that's insane," or "I could never do something like that." But if, in that same moment, her pupils dilate, a ghost of a playful smile touches her lips, and her body, instead of recoiling, leans infinitesimally closer to you, you have hit a nerve. This means the fantasy is not foreign to her. She has likely entertained it, but either lacked the courage or the right partner to explore it. Her verbal no in this context actually means intrigue me further. The third response type, the calm, knowing acknowledgement. She might react with a phrase like, "Ah, I've heard of that," or pose a clarifying, almost technical question, such as, "And did the article explain the primary psychological appeal?" Her voice contains neither shock nor embarrassment, only a detached curiosity or perhaps even a hint of boredom. This is the reaction of a woman for whom this forbidden topic is not forbidden at all. She has either experienced something similar or is so well versed in the concept that it fails to elicit a strong emotional response. Her map of desire is vast and well documented. You have merely pointed to a city where she has already been a tourist. The psychological key to this test is that you are gaining access to her inner world. By introducing a forbidden fantasy, you are, in effect, giving her shadow, her hidden self, permission to speak. And even if her conscious mind, her persona, says no, her unconscious, her shadow, will always answer truthfully through the language of the body, through micro-expressions, through intonation. And that answer is infinitely more valuable than her words. It shows you not who she wants you to think she is, but who she is in the depths of her most private desires. Section 5, the Projective Story Technique. We have arrived at the endgame of our investigation. The fifth step is the most intellectually potent. It synthesizes all the data gathered so far and allows you to obtain not just a hint or a vibe, but a comprehensive manifesto of her core philosophy. This technique, known in psychology as the projective method, is built on a fundamental law of the human psyche. In judging or defending others, we invariably reveal ourselves. We project our own values, fears, justifications, and personal history onto a fictional character. This is the final move, the one that compels her to pass judgment on herself without ever knowing she is on trial. The elegance of this method is its perfection. When a question concerns her directly, her psychological defenses are on high alert. But the moment you shift the focus to a story about a friend of a friend, her defenses stand down. She no longer needs to guard her own image. She is free to analyze the situation with objective detachment. But this objectivity is an illusion. Her mind will instantly find aspects of the heroine with which to identify, and her entire analysis will be a subconscious defense or condemnation of those aspects. You hand her a puppet, and as she makes it dance, she narrates her own autobiography. The protocol for crafting the legend requires surgical precision. The story must not be overly dramatic or simplistic. It needs to be relatable and morally ambiguous. Here is the chassis of a perfect narrative. I have a good friend. He recently met a woman and seems to be falling for her hard, but he then accidentally discovered that her past was, let's just say, she had a very eventful youth with a lot of partners. So now he's tormented. On one side are his feelings, but on the other is this knowledge that's eating at him. He doesn't know how to process it or what he should do. Note the specifics. You use ambiguous language, very eventful. A lot of partners. No numbers, no hard facts. This invites her to project her own definitions onto these vague terms. After telling the story, you pose the pivotal question, but it is not what should he do? That is too direct. You ask it differently. It just made me curious. From your perspective, should a man even know these things? And can a past like that really affect true love? This question elevates her from the role of advisor to that of a philosopher, an expert on the human heart. It is in this role that she will be most revealing. Now, the most critical phase, analyzing her verdict. Listen not to her final conclusion, but to the arguments she uses to get there. Where does she place the emphasis? Option 1. The emphasis on female autonomy and freedom. If her opening salvos are "that's her business, what right does he have to judge her? She's a free woman and her past belongs to her." Be aware, she is not defending some abstract woman. She is defending her own right to her history. The more passionate and emotional this defense, the higher the probability that her own history was indeed eventful. She is fighting for the legitimacy of her own life's path. Option 2. The emphasis on honesty and trust. She might say, the issue isn't the number, it's the secrecy. If they are building something real, it can't be built on hidden truths. This position signals maturity. She moves the focus from the facts of the past to the quality of the connection in the present. A woman like this is unlikely to conceal her past if she trusts that you can handle it without judgment. For her, principles, honesty, transparency, trust, outweigh statistics. Option 3. The emphasis on male feelings and consequences. She might align with a man, saying, "I can understand his struggle." That's a difficult thing for a man to deal with. Perhaps she should have considered how it would affect him. This is a fascinating stance. It could speak to her traditional values, or it could suggest that she has had a negative experience where her own past created problems. She views the situation through the lens of its potential to cause damage. This is the position of a cautious, perhaps even a wounded, realist. There are also classic blunders that can invalidate this final test. The most common is making the story too transparently about your own situation. If she senses the parallel, she will know it is a manipulation and will immediately shut down. The second error is to betray your own opinion before she has offered hers. If you begin with "my friend is in this awful situation," you have already biased the experiment. Your posture must be one of absolute neutrality. You are merely a narrator, seeking wisdom from an expert. And that expert, in judging the fictional couple, will in fact be writing her own confession. Conclusion: the true purpose of the number. And so, our 5-step covert operation is complete. You created a field of permission, paid tribute to her shadow, audited her physical memory, glimpsed her map of forbidden desires, and finally, you listened to her confession delivered through a projective narrative. By now, you almost certainly have a highly accurate portrait of her past. But here, at the finish line, I will ask you the ultimate question: why did you truly need that number? For a feeling of security? To confirm that she was worthy of you? To soothe your own ego? This entire intricate operation was never about arriving at a demeaning digit. It was about discovering 3 fundamental truths that are infinitely more important than any statistic. First, her relationship with herself and her own past. Does she carry it with shame, hiding it like a dirty secret? Or does she own it as part of her journey, as the experience that forged the woman she is today? This reveals her level of maturity or infantilism. Second, her operating system of values. Which does she prioritize? Freedom or fidelity? Honesty or comfort? The right to secrets or the ideal of transparency? Her verdict in the 5th test gave you an exhaustive answer. Now you can determine if her values are compatible with your own. And that is the bedrock of any lasting relationship, far more durable than any number in her biography. And third, and most crucial, you learn the degree of her honesty. Not with you, with herself. A person who is at peace with their own history will not resort to evasion and deceit. Their reactions will be seamless, their arguments coherent. You are not hunting for a number. You are hunting for the truth. And you have found it. You have found the truth of her character, her principles, her fears, and her power. And that truth is the only thing that has ever mattered. A truly mature man does not seek a pure woman. He seeks an honest one. And this investigation has delivered the answer to that one, ultimate question. And now, the final question is for you, the discerning audience of this channel. I have shared the techniques, but now, let's create a library of collective intelligence. What is the most subtle, nonverbal cue that has ever personally signaled to you that a woman had a rich and varied past? Share your story or observation in the comments. Let's build a genuine encyclopedia of masculine wisdom right here under this video. I will pin the most insightful and astute comments,